Welcome to this installment of Parenting Plus on the Rochester First app. I'm your host, Isabel Garcia, where we do a deep dive into all things moms, dads, parents, families of all shapes and sizes. And I am also honored to bring our guest in for this week, Karen Iglesias with Primetime 585. Thank you so much for joining us, Karen.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for having me in studio.
Yes, of course. And so just wanted to kind of get a quick overview talking about, you really have the pulse, of course, of the youth sports world here in the greater Rochester area with your platform, Primetime 585, which has grown tremendously over the years. And when it comes to just the benefits of, in general, organized sports, how do you see this transform kids' lives?
I mean, first of all, overall, for all kids, right? It transforms everything about a child, because sports teaches you leadership. Sports teaches you responsibility, planning, organization. So athletes tend to be more regimented when it comes on to sports. So I'm a strong believer that sports can change or even save a life, right? Depends on where you are, because there's some kids that have confidence issues. So for girls, especially for me, it improves their health. It improves their academic performance. Data has shown that with girls, it improves confidence, it improves their academic performance, their leadership. If you look at Fortune 500 companies, all ran by women, I think it was 84% played some level of high school sports, because it teaches them about not only confidence, but also leadership.
That's excellent. And, you brought up data. I was talking with you before we started taping about kind of my, love of the Kelsey, Not Gonna Lie podcast out of Philly, as a mom of 4 girls herself, of course, and, the wife of, former Eagles player Jason Kelsey. But, she talked to and is a big advocate of, the Build Her Confidence and Keep Her Confident campaign, especially with Nike and Dove, which research was showing that 45% of girls will drop out of athletics by the age of 14 due to low body confidence. I mean, just hearing those numbers, how does that make you feel?
First of all, it's not startling numbers anymore. When we're in an age, right, where you have to have a national day for girls in sports, right? They have to literally have a day called Girls in Sports. That tells you all you need to know, because it improves not only life skills, it teaches teamwork, it teaches leadership. And when girls are hovering between 13 and 14, their body image, think about teen girls, they're trying to find themselves. They're trying to figure it out. We're breaking out. There's pimples.
Yes.
They start their menstruation. There's so much that happens during that time. And girls don't want to be embarrassed. So a lot of girls will drop out of sports between middle and high school out of sheer body image, how they look, how they feel. And on top of that, then you get the other part where girls in sports sometimes can be mean to each other, right?
Yes.
They can be.
Sure.
There's a lot of clickiness with girls in sports. There's a lot of that goes on. Self-esteem, depression. So we're trying to teach our girls, especially, about not only their body image, but also to be good to yourself, right? Look in the mirror. But it's hard to tell girls that, hey, listen, it's hard for women.
Yep. I was going to say, it's hard for grown-ups. My kids are definitely little. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. But I mean, it's, if it's hard for grown-ups, imagine, in that, younger, brain that's not fully developed yet, but, fully capable, of course, too. And I know, oftentimes in talking with child psychologists, over the years, they said oftentimes, just trust your kids a little too. And, when it comes to motivating, I wanted to talk about that. Obviously we live in more of a world now where the kind of social emotional learning is at the forefront, understanding, all the pressures, of course, that come with, if you're in a organized sport, as well on top of classwork and keeping up GPA. As a parent, how do you navigate, oh, I'm not feeling so good, or I don't want to go to practice, versus, this is your team's relying on you, and, where do you draw that line?
Well, there's a few things that's loaded, right? There's a lot of social stigmas when it comes on to girls in sports, right? There's less people, less role models they have than boys. They get less sports coverage than boys. They tend to be significantly less everything, less access to sports. So like, for example, flag football have changed Section 5 sports because flag football is offered in the spring when there's less sports. Because if you have a girl that do not play lacrosse, right, or softball, there's no other options for girls in the, and not everybody do track and field.
Sure.
So there's only lacrosse and softball that's offered for girls in the spring, where boys have a lot more options, right? So when you're talking about that, there's less options for girls than there are for boys. That's just a fact, right?
Yes.
So that and then when you tackle on urban areas, then we're talking a whole different conversation when you start talking about urban areas and the lack of participation that happens in sports for girls. It's not like they don't want to participate. You're talking about transportation is an issue. Equipment is an issue. So you have to tack on all the other things that the suburban girls got and some for urban girls in sports, right? Like, just think about that. Most of them won't have someone to come pick them up afterwards. There's a trend. And then some parents don't want their kids going through downtown to get home. So we have kids that actually will drop out of sports in urban, especially girls. So these are all things. When I say it was loaded, it depends on the population.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
There's so many different factors to anything, socioeconomic, status. Even access, to food and meals, for districts and keeping athletes healthy and fed. When it comes to just the Rochester community, and your platform uplifting, especially girls, but, youth sports in general, and really celebrating the child and who they are as the athlete and the star that they are. What do you see and the relationships that you've built, with these student athletes over the years?
Well, I think relationships matter. I think the kids trust me. That's a major thing for me. They know Primetime is not going to lie to them. We're always going to be their advocate. Our success, we're in our peak time this year, we'll be averaging close to 18 million views a month. A month, right?
That's amazing.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy. And I said 6 years ago, I didn't even have an Instagram account. I was calling my son in college, how do I set this Instagram thing out?
Oh my gosh, look at that.
I was calling my son in college.
Incredible.
He was teaching me how to pose. My son was teaching me how to put things on stories. And now we're going to peak out between 18 and 20 million per month. And I think one of the reasons is we try to make it a positive platform. We try everything that we do, we try to more pour into both the boys and the girl athletes, right? We don't only concentrate on the stars, because that's part of the problem. You concentrate on only the stars. A lot of people, a person might take 3 charges in a basketball game, but 2 of those charges was against a star player of the opposing team. So we're going to highlight that. They might have 0 points, but those 3 charges might change the scope of the game. So we cover sports in a way that is so unique, that is so different. And I think that's the reason what makes us so different is we look at the wholeness of the team, and we try to get all the team on camera, right? Not just the star players, because all of them, even when these kids are winning, you can't win without practice players.
Yes.
We have to send the message that we also need you, because who are they going to practice against, right?
Right.
So the practice players is just as important as the star players, because they sharpen the star player to be able to go out and face teams. So we look at things through a different perspective. We're very popular with grandparents.
Oh, nice.
Because grandparents like to see their kids on social media, and we are extremely popular with girl dads
Oh, okay.
We are
Yes.
very popular with girl dads, okay? Because they know that before us, field hockey was never covered.
Wow.
I mean, no one covered field hockey, even during sectionals, right? Wow. So, and these are dads that want to see their kids just like the basketball players so we took a different approach, swimming and diving. We're inclusive, and even here in studio when we come in, and then we have our award show when Thad and I do our awards. We not only worry about small schools and large schools, we are inclusive of all the sports. Wow. So people are like this, oh, wow, you have a swimmer of the year? Just like you have a football player of the year? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All of the kids, I mean, they all work so hard, and the sports are so demanding, but, I know that can sometimes get, kind of over the line, but, when it comes to the, just the demand, especially that the kids put on themselves, I'm sure, but in terms of just the heart, and soul that it takes to be, part of that, I think it's all incredible.
It's hard being a mom of an athlete. I have to,
let's talk about that.
I was one of those, so my son played at McQuaid and was the MVP of sectional, so I get it. And I think my approach to when I cover sports is, especially the really good players that's signing college letters, I always ask about their parents. I always acknowledge that, because I know when you sign to play Division I, Division II, Division III, or JUCO, the parents are signing too. It's those days in the cars, those nights, those weekends, that money, the time, all of that is not just that child. So covering sports is from a different perspective for me, because I was one of the moms that every weekend I was in the gym, a dirty, smelly gym for years.
All those long hours.
Yes. So I always, sometimes when I do my interview, I jokingly, and I say, especially like 3 sport athletes, kudos to those moms, man, because at least my son played basketball. Some of these parents are going from year round doing it because their kids play 3 season and off season and all of that, so they're driving them, and we have to acknowledge that. I'm not going to say just the moms, but just the parents just doing that. It's work, that's like a second job.
Absolutely. I have my mother-in-law, shout out. It definitely helps us out when it comes to different setups of home games in a different location or something like that. I mean, it's truly the village that it takes to support these kids.
Are MVPs, okay? I'm shouting out. I'm shouting out grandparents. I'm shouting y'all out. Kudos to you guys, because I know my mom and dad was instrumental with both my kids when it comes on to sports. So when you talk all things mom, we have to be inclusive of everything that makes the child. And good athletes generally have a village that surrounds them, and that includes sometimes the neighbor, that includes the cousin, the aunt, because it's such a strenuous thing, but it's a good thing. And data has also shown that kids in sports generally sometimes have the highest GPAs. People used to have, it's the jocks, they're the dumb jocks. That's not true.
The stigmas, yes.
No, that's not true. We found that a lot of, even when we do our show here, and we're doing the, we had some pushback from some community news and the News 8 pages in the comment. Why don't you guys have these athletes of the year? You guys need to have scholars of the year. And I said, well, have you watched the show?
Yes.
Because on the show, when we're doing the introduction of the child, you'll see us say the majority of them, National Honor Society, 4.0 GPA, so on and so forth. They could be scholars and athletes.
Absolutely.
At the same time. So we want to push back on that myth that it's just these dumb jocks doing sports.
And it's just the sports and not just the love of learning, which is what you had mentioned before, is just the skills that also come with it.
Absolutely.
Incredible. And I really appreciate the conversation. When it comes to, because you said, just the way in which, you're covering as well, sports and just your experience being a sports mom, and now, with this platform too, how can sports be an introduction or a bridge rather for parents too, to have, I know that, there's kids in all different age range and stuff, but when it comes to being able to kind of help cultivate that relationship with your child, I'm imagining, and also living through something like, come on, get dressed, get out the door and stuff, but keeping it fun and making sure that the child also and student athlete has the fun element at the forefront as well.
Great question, right? You could see, so I'm on a sideline every day, 6 days a week. You could see the ones that are having fun. And you could see the ones that are just doing it for their parents. Like you figure it out really quickly, right? And the ones that are having fun, they play different. The ones that are doing it for their parents on the sideline, that screaming, that yelling, and all of that stuff. And I used to scream and yell. And my kids weren't doing it for me either. I'm not saying screaming and yelling means that it's for the parents.
Sure.
But you could see the difference because the level of stress sometimes on these kids' faces, especially. I was at a game last week, and in the middle of the game, soccer game, she turned to her parents in the stands, said, "Stop, just stop it." In the middle of the game. And you know what we did? We cut that part out on our video because she just happened to be passing the camera. She was frustrated, and her parents were kind of riding her a little bit. So that girl isn't having fun.
Right. Yeah.
That's not fun.
No.
You know what I mean?
That's a moment, and that's just, going through all the things.
Right.
Sometimes things compound, and it just happens. But as you mentioned too, circling back, feelings can be hard for grown-ups oftentimes as well.
And
same thing with the kids.
And there's some kids that's there, they're there because they were, I'm not going to say forced, sometimes like a tradition in their family, right?
Sure.
Everybody's a wrestler, so you got to be a wrestler. So there's traditions like that. But I would say you could tell the difference. Once the kids can be done, they are done with it. Like they're done. But kids having fun at it tend to be the ones that tend to do much better. And you could see it on their faces, right? They want to be there. You don't have to force them out the door. Although you do have some kids that are stragglers, right? They just, right, like my son, like, let's go. We got practice. Let's go. So it's not all the time. But once they stop having fun is when, to me, you have to take a good, strong look at maybe sports is just not their thing. Maybe they want to join the debate team. Maybe they want to act, and maybe they want to do plays, which is why Primetime, we kind of delve into doing some art stuff and doing, some musicals because we wanted to spread the message that not just sports make you special.
Absolutely.
In a school. You could be an artist, you could be a drummer, you can be and still be special.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to send that message that that's just the only way to be special.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's beautiful. I'm going back to my previous life in motherhood when my kids were a little bit younger, and we would often watch Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, of course, as based on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, with all of the lessons to hold on to there. But he always expressed, and I always tell my kids, you can have more than one job, more than one title, more than one, even just you as a person, as an individual, are special in your own right.
And especially with girls, right? We have to continue. When I go on the sideline, I have to remember there's not a lot of us, right? There's 3 really in Rochester, with Rachel joining now. There's only 3 women that's covering sports, right? So for a long time, there's only 2. And we have to let our girls know that we're allowed to be in spaces, right? You want girls to know they're allowed to be in those spaces, right? You can be on a sideline. You can cover football. You can have cute hair, nails. You could be, you could be stylish. Because one of the things with me that people push back when they come at me is, you're all about style and you're always matching. What am I supposed to do? Not match? Like, I don't understand. Like, what are we doing? Right. Like, I guess I get my nails done every 2 weeks. My hair's got to be laid. It's got to be on fleek. Listen, and so sometimes I know I'm in a space where some people don't understand that, right? So we have to let our girls know.
Yes.
It's okay, and you are welcome in all spaces.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's important. So when I go on a sideline, when I go in a gym, when I go in a pool, when I go to cover sports, I always remember that I have to let the girls see me in a professional way, but also I'm having fun. This is literally, I love my best time of my day is from 2:00 on, because I love being in that space. It doesn't matter if I'm covering bowling, swimming, football, basketball. I just know that I love being in that space, and it's a message that it's important for me to send to our girls.
Absolutely.
That don't ask for permission, to be in spaces. You take that, snatch it, and you go along with it. And that's the thing that we have to tell our girls, is that you are allowed and you don't need to ask permission to belong on a sideline, in a gym, in a pool, covering sports. You snatch that up and you put it on your back and you go do it.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I think you really speak to something too about being able to fuse all those different loves too, and seeing, the whole girl. My daughter is super interested in fashion and, along with sports, and you can see kind of that fusion come out. I know for, women's professional basketball, that's been a huge platform and kind of new route that it's taken the industry also. And
It's
guess
all
what?
tied
There's
into
money.
one. You can't, listen, every time I go somewhere, the kids are like, oh, I like your nails. Like, I like your hair. And because I'm still a girly girl, like I'm still going to be a girly, and it's okay to be, we have to send that in sports, you can still do this and still be stylish.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't demean who you are.
Exactly.
Because, and we have to send those messages, especially to our athletes. It's very important to my girl athletes. They understand equal coverage. We do 50-50 every week. It's 50% coverage of boys, 50% coverage of girls. Our followers down to the line, we have 49.5% of male followers and 50.5 of males. Like, we literally try to do everything down the line. The equality in sports is one of the things that made us big.
Absolutely.
I honestly believe that when we got big was actually when we started covering girl sports, and a lot of it was girl dads.
Okay.
They propelled that. They were inboxing me and texting me because they're, a lot of these girl dads were athletes themselves.
Yep.
They were covered. They were covered, and they know. They know it wasn't fair, and they see it, right? Like, they
then they're
see it.
seeing it through that, right?
And they're seeing that through that lens. Like, wait a minute, my girl is not getting the same love as I get when I played football, though. Like, what's going on? So I think that Girl Dads is the one. When we first started covering sports, it wasn't a year after that we propelled to girl sports that we really was onto something. And then once we started covering non-traditional sports, like, we got a lot of pushback. I think year 2 in, the end of year 2, we started covering cheerleading. And I kid you not, we had so much thing on Twitter, people inbox me, why am I looking at all this cheerleading stuff? These are not athletes. What are you doing? Oh. To me. I said, honey, they're throwing people. They're not throwing balls. Right? You could drop a ball. We don't want these girls being dropped, right? They're catching girls. They're catching other girls. And the strength. And when you talk to Dr. Elizabeth Murray, that's my friend. And one of the things she actually said was when a lot of injuries coming in the emergency rooms, there's more cheerleading injuries than any other sport. Wow, because their knees, they're catching to their backs if they miss. And if you go to a cheerleading competition, they're all wearing some ankle something, they knee something. It's a lot of stress. These girls do weightlifting, they do dance, they do tumbling. It's a lot on their bodies. So when people say cheerleading is not a sport, I said, honey, show up on them cheer competitions and you'll see if they are athletes or not.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just purely, and what I appreciate and respect so much is just that, the respect that I think that you and your platform, and I think that you model, that everyone can also take some lessons from too.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for joining us for this segment. That's going to wrap it up for us for Parenting Plus. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.